first, we're going to be talking about a major shift in U.S. immigration enforcement, third country deportation. So instead of sending immigrants back to their home countries, the U.S. is now transferring them to some nations with no prior connection to them under legally sanctioned deals. So, for example, in March 2025, the United States deported 238 Venezuelan nationals to El Salvador, where many were detained at the CCOT mega prison. So these individuals, Venezuela refused to take them back, I guess because they're such bad guys. Lindy's going to break that down for us. Migrants from Vietnam, Jamaica, Cuba, Yemen, and Laos have been deported to a country in southern Africa. I've never even heard of this country, called Eswatini. They're being held in solitary confinement under a bilateral agreement. Others, including men from Nigeria and I don't even know how to pronounce this one, Eritrea, were sent to South Sudan under a deal with minimal public disclosure. Now, the Supreme Court cleared this practice in June 2025, allowing the U.S. to proceed without extensive notice or hearings when home countries block repudiation. So in other words, when Venezuela says thanks but no thanks. All right, now U.S. officials say the policy is legal and necessary. Critics argue it risks violating due process and international norms. It does sound a bit barbaric. Lindy, is it? Lay this out for me. It just like a CCOT prison when you're not from El Salvador seems a bit.
Well, first of all, this has happened before in American history. We had Remain in Mexico, and it substantially reduced the number of border.
It's the same concept.
It's the same concept.
I get it. I should have known that. Okay, of course.
But it's just in a different repackaging. It's framed a different way. But this Remain in Mexico policy, which, by the way, the Biden administration likes so much, they continued, went from reduced border crossings from 144,000 in May 2019 to under 40,000 by late 2020, okay? So that's a substantial decrease. And just to put it into perspective, these are people that their own home countries don't want them. They don't want to take them back in. They don't want to repatriate them. So a lot of, you mentioned the Venezuelans. Some of them were literal rapists and murderers and hardened criminals that their home countries don't want. And I want to stress, as an immigrant myself, this is not about deterring legal immigration. It's not about saying we don't want immigrants in this country. It's about saying we don't want rapists. We don't want criminals that whose own home countries don't want. And this is a humane process. The third countries have been carefully vetted, and they are financially incentivized to make sure that we respect international laws, that we treat everyone well. That is
like a mega prison CCOT. That's my only concern, right? And then I heard about some Venezuelan makeup artist, which I can't actually get.
I'm not sure if that's under that. That's the same structure. I'm not sure that he was repatriated under the.
Can I weigh in a little bit?
Yeah, well, sure.
Yeah, so like when it comes to the Remain in Mexico policy, that actually was a pretty good policy. Biden actually did end it, and that was one of the problems I had with the Biden administration's immigration policies.
He let it go on for a while.
He let it go on for a little bit, and then he decided to end it following pressure from a portion of his base that wanted to, basically have a complete 180 from Trump's first term as it pertains to immigration. But Remain in Mexico was about still considering the asylum claims of individuals who were seeking asylum in the United States. In this case, there are asylum seekers who never even got a chance to make their case who are being deported. And there's a lack of transparency in regard to who is being deported. I'm not going to take the government's word for it that they're all criminals and they should all be treated this way. And there are concerns based on legal experts and what they're saying about how this process is playing out. There are concerns that there are international laws and certain pacts and treaties that the United States has agreed to that we're now violating as a result of this process. So, for instance, there was an expert that was interviewed about this, and apparently we are part of the Refugee Convention as well as the Convention Against Torture, and they believe that some of these third country deportations violate those laws, especially when it comes to the fact that their asylum claims aren't even being considered and they're just being deported anyway. So I'm worried about that. The other thing I'm worried about is, the Trump administration claims that they want to discourage illegal immigration, but make no mistake about it, they've also targeted individuals who are trying to do things legally. So ICE has detained people at their court hearings. They show up to court, They're following the law. They want to make their case, and then they get snatched up and deported. What does that do? That actually discourages other undocumented people in our country who plan to go to the courts, right, to make their case, to avoid doing that and to hide instead.
Yeah, I think I understand where you're coming from, but I think the counter argument is that these are undocumented immigrants who shouldn't have been on U.S. soil in the first place. I understand your perspective, but this is just the different take. And also, I want to say that people have every right to make an asylum claim, but they don't have every right to make an asylum claim in the United States. For example, if you're from Honduras, actually, under international law, you make an asylum claim in the first country you arrive in.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And there are,
Right.
let me see, if you look at a map, there's Mexico, there's the United States, there's several routes you can take. It's not just one, right? And so if there are 7 countries between the United States and your country, you don't skip all the 6 countries in between just to pick the United States.
Yeah, I think I actually think that's a good argument.
Completely forgot that. And so I remember hearing it in passing.
But this is the mistake I feel like I've made, right? Because during the Biden administration, I wasn't one of these lefties who was like, no, all undocumented immigrants in the country are fantastic. They're wonderful. They're precious little angels. We must protect them all. What was happening in Colorado, for instance, was
the apartment buildings and the
and by the
gangs
way,
taking them over, like Aurora, Colorado.
Oh my gosh,
By the way,
bananas.
this is in Aurora, Colorado.
Yeah.
I remember everyone on the left was jumping down my throat. How could you believe this fake story? It wasn't fake. In fact, just a few weeks ago, the New York Times did a follow-up on it, and they're like, oh yeah, it turns out that these criminal Venezuelan gangs did take over the apartment complex. Anyway, putting that aside though, I supported what Trump claimed he was going to do with immigration when he was campaigning. But what we have seen is violations of people's human rights, heavy-handed ICE raids, talk about denaturalizing citizens who have done everything the right way, but they have political views that the Trump administration doesn't like. I don't trust the Trump administration on this. And when they claim like they're all criminals, I'm not going to take their word for it. I want to see some transparency here. If they show us who these individuals are, what kind of crimes they were committed of, I'll totally co-sign onto a policy that focuses on those individuals. But when I see people get snatched up at their court hearings when they're following the law, that's a problem.
Is that 100% accurate?
Yes, it is.
I thought they were being detained and then released.
No.
I saw that in like San Francisco and they were released, and then I think
Again,
Seattle.
I think the counter argument is they shouldn't have been here in the first place if they're illegal immigrants.
But
they
if
don't
they
have a
came
right.
to the border seeking asylum, they didn't do it illegally.
Also, the argument is that why, if there are several countries between their home country and the United States, why do we let
Sure, but that needs to be adjudicated,
and
right?
also, I think the Trump administration right now feels like it's under siege because they have these activist judges stymieing his policies every step of the way, and him not being able to find judicial relief because there are so many liberal judges. For example, Judge Breyer, who's the brother of former Supreme Court Justice Stephen Breyer, also basically making law from the bench, from my perspective. And another thing is, this is a political argument. This is arguably a winning policy for him with the base. He's eroded some of the support from the general populace has eroded, but the MAGA base loves it. And Trump is feeling a little bit, under scrutiny because of Epstein and whatnot. This is what he's falling back on to drum up support again.
But it's interesting how it's still kind of divisive because you hear different things. Like I'm hearing some people on the right saying, this is how many deportations have been accomplished so far. If you break that down over a period of month by month, it's really not even as many as what he claimed that he was going to do. But the thing is, this is the #1 issue for so many people that I think people have become callous to these negative repercussions. I do agree with you. It should be, measured twice, cut once. But because of how emotive this issue was for so many people, the heat index on it, it was like #1 for many of the different swing states because it was on their front lawn. So people are just callous to it. They're like, get them out.
But that's the failure of the Biden administration. This is the argument I was trying to make before the election happened, and I was like, listen, Democrats, I get it. You want to automatically take the opposite position of whatever Trump is saying, but you have to be smart and nuanced about immigration policy because if the immigration policies implemented by Democrats are harming various communities because it goes unfettered. There isn't really any, oversight over what's going on at the border. There's going to be resentment building in the country. So I don't agree with that resentment, but I saw it building up until the election. So I think you're right, Lindy, in that, Trump's base probably does love this. Regardless of his base loving it, though, my concern is violating human rights and international agreements that we have basically taken part in, right? And I just want to make sure that we're not sending someone who actually was persecuted in Venezuela, maybe someone who doesn't agree with socialism, maybe someone who's speaking out against the government of Venezuela and came to the United States seeking asylum. I don't want them to be sent to a freaking prison.
Can I give you guys two cases that prove both of your points, as far as I know it? So one is Kilmar Abrego Garcia.
Maryland man,
you
quote unquote.
will never find an ounce of empathy in my heart for this man. He beats the crap out of his wife. We know that for a fact. He is a suspected human trafficker. He has tattoos that arguably interpret, mean MS-13, like a marijuana leaf, M, a smiley face, S, a cross, and so on and so forth. The guy came here illegally 10 years ago, did not initially present himself for asylum, had a deportation order. Informants came forward and said, yup, gang member, out you go. And then he's like, no, asylum. And this pisses me off for a couple of reasons. Number one, you're blocking up asylum courts for actual refugees.
There are a lot of people who do
so
that,
you're a scumbag and a piece of crap, and now you're backlogging our asylum courts, which hurt very vulnerable people and cost $1 gazillion. So the Trump administration was like, you know what we can do? We have a deportation order. He's afraid to go back to his own country. Sayonara, sister, you're going to a third-party country. And I was like, woo! Now, if my Venezuelan, I can't find this guy. I don't know where he is. I don't know what happened to him. Actually, Connor, can you look for a picture? He's a Venezuelan makeup artist who's gay.
Oh, yeah.
And we talked about it our first few episodes.
What happened to him?
I know, we haven't heard anything.
And the argument is this kid was shipped off to friggin' CCOT.
And he actually...
Now that is alarming. So I'm like, yes. And
he actually was being persecuted because of his sexual orientation. So it's like... look, there actually are a few more things. Just real quick.
I feel like you're both right. That's all I'm saying.
Don't want to forget this point. It is true that Trump has deported far less individuals compared to the Obama administration and even compared to the last year of the Biden administration. That is true. But what the Trump administration is currently doing is they're making their immigration policies intentionally cruel to prevent people from coming to the border. They're basically doing these things as a deterrent. And cruelty is the point. It's not the bug, it's the feature. So Alligator Alcatraz, that was done intentionally to basically signal to the world, don't come here because we're going to abuse you and mistreat you and throw you in some sort of detention center with alligators all around. So I don't want that to be the view of America in the international community, but I think it's far too late at this point.
Go ahead. I got to respond. You're right. I do want to address what you said, and I agree with that point that a lot of this is because the pendulum is swinging way back because the Biden administration was basically lying prostrate before the world. And this just shows that the Newtonian law of motion applies to politics as well. For every action, there's an opposite and equal reaction. And I do want to remind folks, like Anna mentioned, Obama deported 3.1 million.
Half didn't get a trial.
Exactly.
With all kinds of loopholes and manipulations.
Exactly. And Bill Clinton as well.
Yeah.
The numbers are kind of fishy on that and up to interpretation. I have to do this because I have to stay true to myself. And Anna, I talked to you before. I have respect for you, but I want to make sure that I, stay true to my beliefs, which is that we got to put our own people first. And let me put the price tag on illegal immigration. Illegal immigration in recent years has cost, arguably every year, costs our country $116 billion. That's American taxpayer funds in healthcare, in housing, in education, and other taxpayer-funded expenses to take care of these illegal immigrants. We have people in Appalachia, on the East and West Coast, in California, for example, because of the fires, in Texas because of the floods. They are suffering right now. It's time to put Americans first.
Yeah, I don't think that's a bad point. I think that we do need to control immigration. We need better immigration policies, better legislation, which I feel like is never going to happen because Congress is absolutely useless. Again, my biggest concern is mistreating people who come to us for help because they're being persecuted in their countries.
Well, there's the guy. So, breaking, Andre Hernandez Romero, gay asylum seeker, disappeared by Trump. He was sent to CCOT, wasn't disappeared. We know where he went. Part of a prisoner swap. So this is confusing because he doesn't have a criminal record, unless I absolutely missed something.
Oh, I know.
Update
Let me tell you about the prisoner swap. I looked into this today, actually.
Okay,
yes.
yeah, because and can we also please, I do think that we have agreements with these third countries, though, correct?
We do. We're paying them off.
Do.
Yeah.
Okay,
We're
but
giving
it's
money.
not like, so how are we violating any sort of...
Wait, hold on. You brought up a really sympathetic story, but can we have the initial photo
but I also brought
of the
up Kilmar.
rapist and the murderer?
It was a piece of crap.
There are 5 photos of these hardened criminals who do not deserve to be in our incredible country. Okay, we can go down and talk about the biography. The first guy on the left is a rapist, and they're from countries like Venezuela, Laos, Cambodia. It's listed out. If we want to see the
these are the 5 guys that were sent to Africa, right?
it's actually a cohort of, I believe, 235.
See, like, I would send these guys to hell. It's the concern is my little gay makeup artist.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That is
no,
the problem, because
exactly.
I would be all for this. How did my little gay makeup artist?
But we can't let one huge mistake.
Is it one huge mistake?
It
That's
is
my
one
question.
because this is the
Again, it
vast
goes back
majority
to
of
my
these
point
people.
about the lack of transparency. I'm not going to take the government's word for it. I want to know. I like that they release the biographies of these individuals that you're referring to, Lindy, but we keep hearing these stories pop up of people like sympathetic figures, like a mother who's been in the country for multiple decades and she gets sent to a third country. Like, what kind of crime did that person commit?
Why not?
Well, I think
or
that
the people who
country.
show up to their... I don't think I should be arresting
Conservatives
people
would argue
at their
that
court hearings.
Simply the act of stepping foot on U.S. soil is a violation of our laws. And let me explain why people feel that way. And frankly, I do.
It's not true if they're seeking
what
asylum,
I want to understand,
though.
because
But
So you're
it is true
conflating. You're
but
conflating
it is
people across the
true
border,
if there
or
are
they
several
overstay their
countries
visas.
between that country and
Right.
they don't. Not everyone in the entire world, billions of people. Not everyone has a right to be here. It's a privilege. And I love Arnold Schwarzenegger's take on this. He said, if you're an immigrant, you're a guest in this house.
No, I understand that.
I love that
but
what he said.
Do you think they deserve to be thrown in a prison in El Salvador
No, but
or
that's
some
not what
random country in
that's,
Africa?
From my
That
point of view,
is
that's
what I
a
want
straw-
you to
but
stay
that is,
on.
That is my
This is
straw.
what I'm
I feel
trying
like that's
because
a straw argument because there's the examples that I brought up are not throwing people in prisons. It's remain in Mexico.
I'll give you an example.
I'm
Go ahead.
talking about the remain in Mexico policy right there.
No, we're talking about sending people to third countries, and it's not like, hey, we're going to send you over to El Salvador or Costa Rica or whatever, and you're free to figure it out from there. They're being sent to prisons.
Let's wait, Connor, can we show the text of the tweet from Tricia McLaughlin, please? They're not being sent to a prison. They're being sent to a third country that we are paying to make sure, and a carefully vetted country to ensure that they are not going to be mistreated.
So
we just don't want them on
If they're not
American
putting
soil.
them in prison, then they're going to terrorize that country? Like,
Wait, hold on.
I'm
I think
confused.
part of the thing I think we are missing here, and this is what I really want to get to the bottom of, unless in the event that I'm wrong, is the reason the vast majority are going, or the people going to third-party countries, the reason they're
Their
going.
home states don't want them.
Well, not always, though.
Not always,
I think
yeah.
it's the
in this case, yes.
yes, I agree. I agree with you. And we cited Venezuela and Zika. But the asylum piece is the biggest part.
100%.
Because what happens is when everybody shows up and they're like, asylum, I need it. I need asylum. There are 3.5 million pending immigration asylum cases. There's no way. They are all refugees. It will cost us a fortune. It will take 4 to 7 years. So Trump's answer is like, okay, you know what? You're afraid to go back to your country. You're here illegally. We're going to deport you over there. That I think is actually what's happening. If we have these agreements with other countries, then technically that is legal. If they're not going to a prison, then I kind of am like, okay, fine. But I do think that's what happened to the gay makeup artist. Is that
yes.
he said asylum. They said you're here illegally. You don't want to go back there. No
They
problem.
sent-
You're
yeah, but
going over there.
they sent him to
one
CCOT.
So that, I think,
terrible
is what's
example.
happening here,
I just
though.
gave you 235 of my work.
I know,
I
but
agree
Lindy-
100% on that. I think the big picture here is that is why we're doing this third
I also
party.
want to remind you folks that just because they're in a third country doesn't mean they can't apply for asylum. They can do so.
I'm not disagreeing with
you know
you
what
about
I mean?
that.
So we just signed a deal. We
things
just
the right
signed a
way.
deal with Eswatini. Okay, that's an African country. It used to be Swaziland. Okay.
Okay,
So
that's what I've never heard of. I was like,
okay.
what the hell is Eswatini?
Yeah, so the Eswatini, we made a deal with them, and we are now sending undocumented immigrants there. And I wanted to follow up on it to see, like, okay, they're being sent there, and then what? Are they being sent to a prison? And sure enough, an official from the country is like, oh, yeah, we have them in our prison. We have each one of them in solitary confinement. And we're going to try to repatriate them in their country of origin. We don't know how long that's going to take, but indefinitely, these people are going to be in a solitary confinement.
these
Exactly,
bad
that's what I
guys?
mean. They're so
they your bad
bad
guys?
that their home countries don't want them. And frankly, I don't have sympathy for them.
But why are you assuming they're bad? I mean, you
Because
have the
they're-
biographies of those 5 people, but like, we're talking about hundreds of people who have already been
I can assure
sent.
you, these criminals aren't the gay makeup artists.
You have
It's
their
not
bios, like,
Jillian's.
for hundreds of people?
Do you? Let's talk about it. Because right now we're
Well, I
arguing
don't,
a
because there's no
nebulous-
transparency from the federal government
Well, then
at all
we
on
can't
this.
argue it then. You can't use that as an argument if you don't know the substance
if
of
the
their bio.
federal
But they're
government-
so bad that their home state,
Okay,
their home state.
if the federal government was confident that all of these people are criminals and they're dangerous, you don't think that they would release information about every single one of them to justify
millions of people who are here. What I'm
No,
saying,
I'm talking about the hundreds of people that have been deported.
that's
to
what
third
they're doing,
countries.
actually. That's what Trisha is making a point. I just don't want people to reward illegal immigration. They should come the right way. There are millions of them. Actually, that's the Democrats' huge mistake that the Republican Party should not repeat. It's this. If you come to our country the right way, respect our laws, actually engage in the process, you should be rewarded.
So since ICE is arresting people at their court hearings, this is a serious question, though. If ICE is currently arresting people when they show up to their court dates, would you venture to say people who are seeking asylum and want to make their case should probably avoid going to court?
argument is that
let me finish my question. Do you think they should avoid going to court to make their asylum claim because they might get arrested by
my
ICE?
answer, again,
Because you keep talking about illegal immigration. There's also people who are doing things legally.
There
and
are.
they're
Wait,
getting
you're saying that
snatched
they're
up.
legal?
I was thinking
Hold
they
on,
were
you're
just
saying
being
they're
detained and being released.
Hold on,
No.
I feel like you're. Anna, I really want to answer.
Even if let's say
No,
I
I'm
give
just asking you.
No,
because I did look into this.
I did too. Okay,
I
I'm
must
sure.
have
I'm
missed
sure
it.
some of them get released, but some of them have been deported. The
Okay.
point that I'm trying to make is, even if every single one of them was just temporarily detained and let go, that's a scary situation. That sends a signal to everyone else in the country who's trying to do things legally: do not go to your court hearing.
Well, my question is this. Are you asking, there are 2 questions and I want to make sure that we're disentangling it. Number 1, is it illegal immigrants who are showing up to court or legal immigrants? They're 2 different
They're
questions.
making asylum claims. So they're going through the asylum process.
So, in other words, illegal immigrants.
Okay, you know that if you come to the country and you seek asylum, it doesn't automatically
Anna, I
make you
already
illegal.
addressed that
I
question.
know, but that needs to be adjudicated. The courts don't know who this person is. They don't know where they're coming from.
The argument is simply by stepping foot on our soil, they are breaking our law.
That's not true.
But that is-
if they're
that is-
seeking asylum. That's
But-
what our immigration
but
laws
hold
are,
on, that's
Lindy.
the-
And if Republicans don't like it, then
The
do something
counter-argument
about
is
it.
if they're
Change
from-
the immigration
if
laws.
they're from-
But they're lazy pricks in Congress who do nothing but fundraise
Let me
and scratch
please
their
finish.
asses
Let me
and
please-
sniff their farts.
Let me please
and they don't
finish.
do shit.
Let me kindly,
okay?
let me
Okay,
please
go,
finish.
go. And then
if
I
they're
wanna let
from
Amy
a
get a
country
word in.
like, I don't know, Chile, Honduras, there are plenty of countries between the United States and that country. They don't have a right
I
to
know.
claim
There's
A
plenty
judge
that
can
in which case they are
decide-
breaking the
a
law.
judge
They also
can
have
decide-
a year to do it. It says you have to apply within a year.
Yeah, I know. Okay, ICE should not be arresting people when they go to fucking court.
But
There
if
should be
they're
checks and
illegal-
balances, right? At the end of the day, there should be checks and balances, and it seems that the argument that Republicans feel, which I do agree with to some extent, it's like if this is so much of an issue, then maybe brute force is absolutely necessary. When brute force is applied, therefore there's going to be mistakes. But it doesn't seem like when you look
It's
at the number of
working.
people, no, but it doesn't seem like when you look at the total number of people being deported that it really is even.
It's working so much. Illegal crossing into the United States have dropped precipitously under the Trump administration because deterrence works. I think he is doing a tremendous job on this issue.
But so
and
far
I think,
as the
I think
number of people who are actually being deported from the country. How is
it's
it
very
that,
hard because, as I mentioned, there are activist judges on the bench stopping and slowing down the process every stop of the way.
It is true.
And for example, the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals is notoriously conservative, but other circuits are notoriously liberal. And there's been a lot of judge shopping around the country right now, and they know which judges to go to. For example, Judge Breyer in California always famously is really sympathetic to illegal immigration.
I remember the story we covered where like a judge like snuck an illegal immigrant like through the back chambers or something.
What she did
like,
was wrong.
Yeah.
Okay, because in that case, ICE had a warrant. Okay, and she shouldn't try to help someone evade federal authorities.
Right.
And that's what she did. But again, this story, I hate the black and white thinking in this country because it's way more complicated than undocumented bad, we're going to send you out. There are people, again, if you want to discourage people from coming to the border, yeah, you're right, what Trump is doing works. But what are we going to do about people in the country who might have legitimate asylum claims, they're going through the process legally, and they want to make their case before a judge? At that point, the judge can determine whether or not they made a mistake or an error by not going to the first country and decide to deport them that way. At least we're not mistreating people who might have a legitimate asylum claim.
And a lot of them are being processed right now. I just don't think we should underestimate how disappointing and how grating it is for the millions of Americans who came here the right way. The tens of thousands of dollars a lot of us paid to do things the right way.
Yeah.
You know, like when I got the green card, and Amy, you know what I'm talking about.
I mean, it's
such a rigmarole.
Yeah.
It's so hard.
I mean, what was frustrating for me is like I had to wait a really long time for mine to come, and during that period, you can't even travel back home to go visit anyone.
Because you're at the risk of not being able to come back.
Exactly.
Hold on. Listen, we're going to put a button on this, but I think relitigating illegal immigration versus legal immigration is one thing, and we've done a lot of it, and you all make great points. Specifically, I wanted to target this third-party deportation. And to be fair, I think you both made some very good points.
Yeah.
I completely see your perspective. I completely see yours. And the truth of the matter is, personally, I think it's hard not to. And there's a lot of nuance here, and it seems like we're skating over it. In other words, you know, how can we protect people when they apply for asylum? They're not doing it right. They're abusing it. You're totally right about that. There's no question that is happening, and it's hurting real people who are refugees. It's backing up our courts. It's costing a fortune. But can I take away the following? It is legal for Trump to be deporting people to third-party countries.
If they're not being thrown in prisons, then yes, you're right. There's precedent for it.
But sometimes they're criminals.
But if they're criminals, yeah, obviously, like that makes sense.
235 individuals.
I completely saw it, cited it, agree with you. So it's like, it's not black and white, as Anna said.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying.
There's a lot of research to do for yourself. Think about it. Vote accordingly, but it's, you guys brought up great points. That's what I'm gonna say.
Yeah, I think there's actually a lot more agreement than disagreement. I just don't want people who are trying to do things legally to get caught up and punished, you know, and because that is going to discourage people from following the law.
And I completely understand what you're saying. I also understand that resources are finite and we just got to triage. And I'm very much in favor of taking care of everyone here first and everyone who apply the right way. And, you know, making sure that we give legal immigrants a chance to thrive rather than spending. Again, let me repeat, we spend $116 billion a year housing illegal immigrants, teaching them, educating them, and paying for their health care.
Just the false asylum claims cost billions, and that pisses me off. And it's simply because, as mentioned, there are real people in real danger. Thank you so much for watching Her Take. If you like the show, can you help us out by subscribing to the channel, clicking the notification button, sharing, commenting, joining the conversation? It helps us out a ton with the algorithm. We appreciate you.